Introduce yourself.
Morning, everyone. My name is Ken Sanick. I work in the engineering services department. Have been working here for over 20 years. I have also been part of the team that developed this online design tool. I was on that team for about 4 years, and I've also been using HydroCAD for over 15 years. So that's why I was volunteered to do this webinar demo for you. So right now I believe you can see my screen. Just showing a couple quick slides before I jump right into it. To access the online design tool, you just go to the ADS website. Under resources, there's an option for online design tools, and then you'll see the 4 design tools we have available. You'll just be clicking on the StormTech one, and then that will prompt you to open up the tool. There is also, again, under resources, a video library. I think there's currently 9 short, easy to watch videos that are things on like doing internal inlets, doing multiple beds. So you can kind of look at these 5 or 10 minute videos of just a very specific topic, but there's some pretty good content there. Being part of this team, I do know, and I've gotten a lot of feedback from our customers. And quite a bit of that feedback, or a good chunk of it. So some of the updates, not a lot of them, but some of the updates over the last couple of years has been directly from the feedback that we get through our ADS design tool email. So as you're using the design tool and think, oh, it'd be great if you could do this or that, please feel free to use that email and mention that, because there have been some of the updates in the last couple of years have been direct feedback from our external customers. You can also use that if you have questions or need help on something. We do have a team of about 4 people that monitor that during the day. Usually the first one starts at around 7, and one of the first things he does is check that email to see what came in overnight. And as Justin mentioned, the 7200 chamber, as of last Friday, it is installed and available in HydroCAD. So if you look across your version of HydroCAD across the top, you're actually looking for 10.10-7C. If you don't have that, click help, go to check for updates, and that should allow you to get the latest update for that 7C version. That has the 7200 chamber built in. With that said, let's just jump right into the design tool. So I'm going to go over 2 quick designs, what I would call an early stage design and a more advanced design. So I'm going to show you how I build this, how to insert that and model it in HydroCAD. Then I'll be showing you a revision to that same layout where I'm going to build out the system, going to make a much more odd shaped bed, and then how you would insert that and model that in HydroCAD. And then it'll just show you, because I use HydroCAD a lot, this design tool saves me a lot of time because of the way that it does the volume calculations. It's really easy to go back and forth with this design tool in HydroCAD. So let's start out with this. I'm just going to clear this design out. So as I start out, I've already got a background image imported. That's just simply hitting this import button. You can set the scale. That should have been covered in the previous webinar, and there are some videos on exactly how to insert that. It's about a minute for the video. Then what I'm going to do is, I've got this location. I'm just going to rotate this phantom or ghost array of chambers and then slide it down. The one thing to know about this design tool is the mouse controls. It's very similar to the way AutoCAD is. So by using the scroll wheel, I'm zooming in and out. By pushing down on the scroll wheel, I can pan. So we mimic the way that AutoCAD works with this online design tool. So if you haven't used it, it just makes it easier for someone to pick up that has that AutoCAD experience. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in my base information. This information is already there because I just kind of reset the design for what was there. So I just put in the desired volume, some limits that I have on space, my standard stone above and below. I also can click on this and it just gives me an idea of what chamber I'm using. And I can also scroll through the chambers and you can see this array changes. And then my cross section changes. With that said, I forgot that when you do that, sometimes it clears it out. So let me just re-enter that, and then I'm just going to hit Generate Design. When I do that, it's going to do a bunch of calculations behind the scenes, looking at all those things and trying to come up with a layout that fits my volume. So you can see that my target was 17,900. I'm a little bit over. It does go yellow because it's, as it ran the calculations, it goes through a certain number of calculations and gets you as close as you can. In this case, I'm probably a chamber or two over. So I'll show you how to remove those in a second. One thing to note, these manifolds, they automatically generate. It's based on the volume that you input, and it's just going to be a smaller manifold for a smaller volume, a larger manifold for a larger volume. But you also have control over this. So if I just click on this, I can toggle the isolator row on and off if I don't need one for some reason. Generally, we do want those. I can select my structures. I can go to Nyloplast. In this case, I'm just going to leave it as a weir. And I can also modify my manifold size. So you can see when I went from 18 to a 12, the flow rate that manifold, because it's a smaller manifold, isn't as high as the 18. So let's just put it back to the 18. And you can see it jumped up quite a bit by going to that larger size. Same thing happens on the outlet side. You can see that, I can control it. I can change the number of stubs. I can change the structure. And again, I can change the size of it. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove a couple chambers to try to get closer to my volume. To do that, I go to the Components panel, hit the Remove mode, and then I just click them. These are just simple on-off toggles where you see this phantom array in the background. If I go back to Add mode, I can just add it back if I want to. But if I remove the two chambers, you can see I'm about 190 cubic feet over my target. When you look at this chamber stores almost 270, so I'm within one chamber of the volume. So I should be good for that. So now I got my results across the top. I got my volume showing green because I'm inside my width and length. It also gives me my area, number of chambers, and number of end caps. So when I do that and go into HydroCAD, so what I'm going to do is, since this is a pretty simple, easy rectangle, I'm just going to show this being modeled in the wizard. So I'm just going to go in here, edit. Oops, apologize. It's jumping all over the place on me. I'm just going to clear the table. And I'm going to use the chamber wizard. I'm going to go in and select my 7200 chamber. I have 4 rows of 15 chambers. So that's my 60 chambers. Got them right here. I got my end caps correct. But you'll note that the storage volume is 17,312, but in my design tool layout, it's 18,095. And the reason for that is right now, the design tool is counting the stone that's wrapped around, that's these manifolds are embedded into. So right now, HydroCAD's not counting that, but the online design tool is. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to unselect use typical spacing, and then I'm going to go to the side stone. First thing to note is when you look at the side stone, you can see that it's actually got a little bit more stone on the underdrain side. So that underdrain's there, it's set at the invert of, it's set at the same elevation as the bottom of stone. That allows you to account for that volume down there. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to play with the side stone until I get my width to 3818. So I believe it was 15.4 when I was, 15.5. So you can see I'm at 3817, 3818 in tools. That's close enough because I still have to put in the length. And with the length, this overall length is going from perimeter stone to perimeter stone, but this little extra chunk of stone out there, I don't have it right here. So I'm going to have to put in a rough length to account for that difference in the stone, since it's not a perfect rectangle. So when I go into end stone, let's just get it up to about 35. Now all I'm doing is looking at the storage that I have available. Actually, I think this is supposed to be closer to, let's just say 47. So what I'm doing right now is I'm just toggling this end stone up and down until I get a volume that's within a couple cubic feet. So I'm at 18,080. I'm looking for 18,095. So let's just go in there and slightly increase it. 1887, 1895. I can probably go up just a tad more. So I'm at 89.95. So you can just see I'm slowly increasing it until I get where I want to be. So I'm at 92. I'm at 95. To me, that's close enough. I could probably tweak it a little bit more to fine tune it, but I'm within a couple cubic feet of my target. So when I'm using the wizard, that's how I kind of account for this little odd shape right there. HydroCAD, it's really just saying what's the area, what's the height, there's my stone, I'm going to insert the chambers into that stone envelope, and then it runs the calculations. The online design tool is the same thing. It's saying what's your area, where's your height, and it's inserting the chambers and end caps in. So really when you're playing with those stone, you're just kind of tweaking it a little bit to get those volumes to match. And then the background calculations are all done the same way. So that's how I would do a straightforward, simple a rectangular design where I'm capable of using the wizard, the chamber wizard in HydroCAD. So say I have to go in there and modify the system because as my design's advancing along in the stages, it might get more complex. You know, things change. You know, in this case, I'm looking at increasing the volume, and instead of running this pipe that all comes in here, I had to use some of the areas, so I'm just going to insert the pipe. I'm going to insert a second inlet over here. So I'm just going to show you how to go through that. First thing I'm going to want to do is name it as a revision, and then hit Save, Copy, Design. If you just hit Save, it's going to overwrite the original one, so that's why you always want to use that Save, Copy, Design. That way you still have that original version. I forgot to mention, once I'm done and hit Save, and I hit Email, Drawing, and Report, within 5 or 10 minutes, I will get an email with all the inputs and the results. I will have this zip file. I can download the zip file. I apologize, I'm on the wrong screen here. This is the email that I get. Then I download the zip file. It is important that when you get this zip file that you right-click and extract all. That will wind up getting you the, when you extract it, the background image actually shows up in the AutoCAD drawing. You open your AutoCAD drawing and that background image is not there, that means you forgot to extract it, because that extraction is actually what puts those two together. So when I'm in here, you'll see that I get both a CAD drawing. Oops, sorry, again, too many screens. You'll see that I have both a CAD drawing and a PDF. The CAD drawing that comes through is pretty much what we designed in the design tool. So if you've used engineering services before, the drawings that we do in our department looks very similar to it. All the line work on this is pretty much the same. The main difference is just because this is a online design tool with some programming behind it, the leaders are now done in a table. So instead of the leaders being directly on the drawing, they're up in the table, but it does have, you know, your flow rates. So if you get your design tool and realize, oh, my flow rates changed, I can go to a smaller manifold. You can just go back into the tool and tweak that manifold to get that flow rate. And then again, it's just got all your volume information and your invert information. And then, you know, it's just got the standard package of our details with the overlay at the end. So let's go back into my design tool. So what I'm going to do now that I saved that revision, I'm going to start modifying this. So instead of using that generate design, I'm just going to start manually modifying it. So by clicking on the green triangle, I get these little handles. I can just drag and stretch this out, and then I can drag and stretch this down. So what that does is that gives me my ghost and phantom array. It gives me the option to add chambers where I need to add them. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to extend this out because for some reason I have to add more volume to this system as this revision. So I'm going to hit remove mode, outlet structure, click on the chamber, and it's going to allow me to remove that outlet. Then I go back into add mode, and then it's just manually clicking. And as you can see, as I'm adding the chambers, the volume is automatically updating. So this is why I like using the design tool with HydroCAD, because when I do this, it makes it really easy to add and subtract a chamber or two here and there, get these results, and then I can put that directly into HydroCAD. Let's just go one more. I also actually have a light post right there, so let me just remove a couple chambers in that location. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to add my outlet back. We'll just downsize this just a tad, just to get a lower flow rate to meet what we're shooting for. And then I'm going to add an inlet manifold here. One thing we don't usually like is a back-end connection onto the isolator row. And when I hit every other row, it kind of skips that row. Sometimes it's hard to get it to do that, so you got to play with the system a little bit. But as you can see, as I'm making these changes, my flow rate's updating as we're going. Same with on this side. If I had this thing and I could downsize this manifold, I could just go in there and do something like that. But I will leave it at the 18. So that's how I would go in there and modify this. Again, I would likely have a target volume, or at least an idea of what it needs to be, and then I'll have to take this and input this into HydroCAD, and then check my outlet flow rates to make sure that I'm meeting those. So let me go back into my HydroCAD. So when I input this into HydroCAD, so you can see in this model, I actually took the two sub-catchments, so I have flow rates going into each. To size the manifolds, all you have to do is look at your sub-catchment, see that you have 5.14, and then I can go into this and modify this manifold. So in this one, I could probably remove a stub or two and even go smaller. Same with this side. You can see over here I've got 10.28, so this manifold I believe was 11, so that one's adequately sized. This one's a little bit oversized right now, but I could go in there and downsize it as I'm modifying this. So in order to do an odd shape like this, it's not easy to do this, and I wouldn't recommend ever doing a shape like this in the wizard. I have seen people try it, and you can do it, but it's kind of cumbersome. Typically what I do is I use a two-step process. So let me just clear this one out. And the first thing I do is I'm going to model the stone. So I'm going to go into this custom stage area. I'm just going to type in stone here. My bottom elevation is 97. The top of stone, just because of the 9-inch foundation stone, the 5-foot chamber, the 12 inches above it, that puts the top of the stone at 103.75. And then I just get my area straight from, so I'm just up here, I get the area from the tool, and I just enter it right here. Set the voids to 40% and hit OK. So now I just put the stone in. Now I'm just going to use a second line item. I'm going to do prefab chambers. I'm going to select 7200 chamber, and I'm going to embed this into volume 1. So this is going to take whatever I put on this screen and insert it into that stone envelope. My invert is 97.75. That accounts for the 9-inch stone base. My storage multiplier is 84. And my number of rows when I do this, generally just take the number of end caps and divide by 2. Don't really have 7 rows, I have 6, but because I have those 2 extra end caps where I took out that light post, that just accounts for the end caps because there is quite a bit of storage in those end caps. Then I hit OK, double click on it, and then check to see what I have designed. So as you can see, my volume is 25,882, and the design tool is 25,883. So you can see I'm within a cubic foot of it by using this method. This method is the one that I almost always use just because it gives you a lot of control. So if you're going in here and you're checking it and you're like, oh, my outlet flow rate needs to lower a little bit, or I can increase it a little bit, then I can go into the design tool, go into like add or remove mode and remove 2 chambers. As you can see, everything just updates. Then I can go back into HydroCAD. And now that I've got it modeled, I can go into the stone and you can see my area change to 60/60. And I only have 82 chambers. I can go in there, hit OK, then I can double check it and see if it's closer to my outlet or my target outlet flow rate. So that's why I like using this design tool with HydroCAD, because that volume that updates every time you add or remove something. If I increase a manifold size, it bumps the perimeter stone out a little bit just because of the extra size of that manifold. If I add or remove an under drain, adding or removing chambers, all of that stuff just comes right across this top bar. And then by using that 2-step process of defining first the stone and then the number of chambers, I'm just going back into HydroCAD and really just changing 3 numbers, the number of chambers and then the top and the bottom area in that stone envelope. And it makes it really quick and easy to go back and forth as you're fine-tuning your HydroCAD model. So that's most of what I had to go over. I don't know if there's any questions or if anyone wants me to touch upon anything else that I might have just gone over.
No, Ken, I think at this point, all the questions are being handled by the team. Why don't you push forward?